The first thing she felt was the rope biting into her ankles. Not the pain, yet just the pressure. Tight, unforgiving, cutting off the blood while the world hung upside down around her. The sun burned straight into her eyes, white and merciless, and the dry summer wind carried the smell of dust and river mud into her lungs. She was hanging head down beneath a wide old oak. Her dress was bunched in a way that left her fighting for dignity. Her hands were tied tight, her heartbeat hammering so hard she thought it might tear her apart before the rope ever did. Somewhere nearby, a horse snorted, then another. She twisted slowly at first because panic wastes strength, and she knew that much. The rope creaked against the branch, her boots scraped bark. Every movement sent a hot spike of pain through her legs. They had not tied her there to kill her. They tied her there to scare her. If she panicked, she would give them the one thing they wanted most, her surrender, to leave her like a warning nailed to the land. A message that said, "Sign the paper, or next time we don't walk away." Minutes earlier, Silas Crow had stood in front of her with his hat pulled low and his voice calm. The kind of calm that comes from knowing you own the ground beneath another person's feet. Sell the land. Sign away the water. Or hang here until you learn sense. He had not waited for her answer. Now she was alone, upside down, with sweat running into her eyes and the rope slowly cutting deeper into her skin. She did not scream. Not yet. She rolled her hips just enough to change the weight on the knot. Her breathing came short and controlled. She pressed the side of her boot against the bark and twisted again. The knot slipped just a finger's width. That tiny movement told her something important. The man who tied it had been in a hurry, and hurried men make mistakes. That was all she needed. Her heart jumped, hope flashing bright and dangerous. She twisted harder. The rope burned. The bark tore at her dress. Fabric ripped with a sharp sound that echoed too loudly in the quiet heat of the valley. One small sound can travel like a shout. Then the knot gave. One boot slipped free. Her body dropped. She hit the ground on her hands hard enough to knock the air from her chest, dirt filling her mouth, pain shooting through her wrist. One leg still hung caught in the rope above her. The other sprawled useless beneath her. Her dress was torn open at the side, snagged and ruined. She gasped and tried to crawl, dragging herself through dust and weed, knowing Crow's men might still be close enough to hear her breathe. That was when the shadow fell across her boots. Slow, heavy. A man stood a few steps away, reins in one hand. A tired bay horse shifting behind him. He had gray at his temples and dust on his coat. The look of someone who had spent too many years under open sky. She did not know his name. She did not know if he worked for Crow. She only knew she could not stay like this another second. Her voice broke free before fear could stop it. "It's tight." "Take it off," she cried. The words came out wrong, rushed and raw, but she meant the rope. The rope, before it cut deeper. Before Crow's men decided to come back, the man did not move. He just stood there staring. For a long breath, she thought he might turn away. The valley was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses in on your ears. Then she saw his eyes drop to her wrists. Dark, fresh rope burns. The marks told a story without words. He went still. His gaze moved past her, toward the ground, toward the fresh hoof prints pressed deep into the dirt. His jaw tightened like a man recognizing a signature he had seen before. His hand clenched around the reins. He stepped closer, slow and careful, as if the ground itself might explode if he moved too fast. That was when she saw it too. Fresh tracks, more than one horse. Crow's men had not gone far. They never did when they expected a woman to break. The man reached for his knife. He did not rush. His hand did not shake. He cut the rope in one clean motion. A clean cut is what you do when you have already made up your mind. Her leg dropped free. She collapsed onto the ground, curling in on herself, breathing hard, shaking now that the danger had finally cracked open inside her. The man stepped back a pace, giving her space, his eyes never leaving the tree line. "You hurt bad," he said quietly. She shook her head. "Bad enough." He glanced at the torn dress, then looked away again. Respectful. Careful. That told her something about him. Not enough to trust him, but enough to hope. "My name's Clara," she said, because silence felt heavier than pain. He nodded once. "Caleb." Another sound drifted through the heat. Hoofbeats. Distant, but watching. Caleb's hand tightened on the reins. He understood now. This wasn't a girl who had tripped and fallen. This was a message. Silas Crow's kind of message. The worst part about a message like that is how fast a whole town learns to pretend it never saw it. By cutting that rope, by standing under that oak tree with her shaking in the dirt, Caleb Hartman had just answered it. Clara looked up at him, dust on her face, eyes bright with fear and stubborn fire. "They want my land," she said. "They want the water that runs through it. And they won't stop." Caleb did not answer right away. He looked at the tree, the rope still hanging, the torn fabric caught on the bark. Then he looked back toward the valley, where Crow's reach stretched farther than most men like to admit. Helping her would cost him. He could already feel the bill coming due. Walking away would let him sleep. He exhaled slowly, like a man standing at the edge of something he had sworn never to step into again. When a man sees injustice hanging from a tree in the summer heat, does he cut it down and risk everything, or does he ride on and let the land remember his silence? Caleb did not rush her. That alone told Clara she might live through the day. He took his canteen and set it on the ground near her, close enough to reach, but not so close it felt like pressure. Then he stepped back again, eyes scanning the trees, listening to the land the way old ranchers do. The valley stayed quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that watches you. "You can sit up slow," he said. "No hurry." Clara pushed herself upright, breath still shaky. Dirt streaked across her cheek. Her ankle throbbed, but it held. She drank, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and finally looked at him properly. "You didn't have to cut me down," she said. Caleb shrugged. "I did." He helped her to a flat rock beneath the oak's shade and stepped back again. The rope still dangled above them, swaying slightly, a reminder that the land itself had been watching. "They'll come back," she said. "Maybe," Caleb answered, "but not fast. They didn't stay to finish it." That gave her a moment to breathe. Caleb led his horse ahead a few steps and studied the ground, reading tracks the way some men read books. 3 sets of hooves, fresh, heavy. One turned back toward the valley. Crow never wasted steps. "Who did this?" Caleb asked, though he already knew. Clara hesitated, then said the name. "Silas Crow." Caleb let out a slow breath through his nose. "That figures." They started toward his ranch, moving through dry grass and low hills baked brown by summer. The walk was slow. Clara limped, stubborn about it, refusing help until her leg gave a sharp warning pulse that made her wince. Caleb caught her elbow. "Steady. Quiet." "You keep that up," he said. "You'll be worse tomorrow." She allowed the help then. As they walked, she told him enough to matter, and not enough to get herself killed if he turned out wrong. Her father had owned a small piece of land where water cut through shallow stone. Not much to look at, but in dry years it mattered. After he died, Crow showed up with papers and smiles, talking about fair prices and easy living. She said no. The smile stopped. "He doesn't want the land," she said. "He wants the water." Caleb nodded. "Same thing out here." They reached his ranch by late afternoon. A place like that looks small until the wrong man decides it matters. A modest spread, nothing fancy, a few head of cattle, a windmill that creaked like an old man's knees. It was the kind of place Crow usually ignored, which meant it was about to matter. Caleb checked her ankle again, wrapped it clean, then left her on the porch with a chair and shade. He moved with the ease of habit, doing small things that said he had lived alone a long time and learned to manage. A man who lives alone learns to build hiding places into ordinary things. Clara watched him. The way he set his hat down just so, the way he paused before looking back toward the valley. "You could walk away," she said. He did not answer at first. "I could," he said finally. "But that rope would still be hanging there." She looked down at her torn dress, then away. "You'll make it look like your fault." Caleb gave a thin smile. Crow always does. He didn't just win with violence. He won by making decent people doubt what they saw. He told her then. Not the whole story. Just enough. He had worn a badge once. Thought rules were enough to keep men honest. Learned the hard way that paper bends easier than people think. I quit before it killed what was left of me, he said. Clara nodded. She understood that kind of quitting. As the sun dipped lower, a rider appeared on the far edge of the property. Just one, watching. A watcher is worse than a threat, because it means someone is taking notes, not close enough to talk, close enough to be seen. Caleb did not reach for his rifle. Neither did the rider. That was the point. They know you're here, Clara said. Yeah, Caleb answered. They want me to know? The rider stayed until the sun touched the hills, then turned back without a word. Dust followed him, like a warning that lingered even after he disappeared. Caleb watched until there was nothing left to watch. They'll come tonight, Clara said. Or tomorrow, Caleb replied. Crow likes to wait. Makes people imagine worse things than he ever does. He checked the rifle then finally, not in a hurry, not nervous, the kind of movement that came from having made this choice long before the moment arrived. Dark settled over the ranch in layers, wind first, then quiet. Then that hollow sound the land makes when it knows men are about to lie to each other. Caleb showed Clara the spare room. Nothing personal in it. Just a bed, a lamp, and clean sheets folded tight. She hesitated at the doorway. You don't owe me this, she said. I'm not paying a debt, he answered. I'm choosing a side. That mattered more. Night came hard, no moon. Just stars sharp enough to cut if you stared too long. Coyotes cried somewhere far off. And closer than that. A fence wire sang when the wind touched it just right. The knock came after midnight. Not loud, not demanding, polite enough to be insulting. Caleb opened the door with the rifle low and his shoulders loose. 3 men stood on the porch, one with a smile too clean for the hour, one nervous, one mean-looking and proud of it. Evening, the smiling one said, Mr. Hale. Caleb didn't answer. We're looking for a young woman, the man continued. Got herself turned around today. She found her way, Caleb said. The smile thinned. Crow don't see it that way. Caleb shifted just enough that the rifle was no longer hidden by shadow, not aimed, just honest. Crow doesn't get to see it any way he wants, Caleb said. The nervous one swallowed. The mean one stepped forward. That water on your land? He asked. Flows same direction as hers. Caleb nodded once. Does. That makes it your problem. Caleb smiled then. It surprised them. It's been my problem for years. I just didn't know his name. The man reached for his gun. He never finished the thought. The shot cracked the night open. One warning, clean and fast, tearing wood inches from the man's hand. Close enough to burn respect into bone. Silence fell heavy. You take one more step, Caleb said evenly, and I stop being polite. They backed away. Slow. Careful. Pride bruised, not broken. This ain't over, the smiling one said. Caleb nodded. It never is. They rode off hard, hooves pounding fear into the dirt. Clara came to the doorway after, wrapped in a blanket, eyes bright but steady. You didn't kill them, she said. Didn't need to, Caleb answered. Yet, morning came bruised, purple and gold. Dust still hung where the riders had gone. Caleb saddled his horse as the sun climbed. You're leaving? Clara asked. For a bit, he said. Crow won't stop unless someone reminds him why he used to. She studied him. And after? Caleb tightened the cinch. After depends on how much truth he can handle. He rode out alone, the way men do when they don't expect applause. Crow's place sat low in the valley, guarded by confidence more than walls. Caleb rode straight up. Didn't circle, didn't sneak. Men like Crow mistake courage for stupidity until it's too late. They talked, words sharp enough to draw blood if either leaned wrong. Crow laughed. Caleb didn't. In the end, Crow understood something he hadn't before. The rope he used on others could swing both ways. By noon, papers changed hands. Water rights returned where they belonged. Crow kept his life. Barely. Caleb rode back slower. Clara was waiting on the porch, standing without help now. The wind moved her hair, free of fear for the first time since he'd seen her. "It's done?" she asked. "For now," Caleb said. She nodded, then did something unexpected. She laughed. Soft, real, like someone remembering what it felt like to breathe. They stood there a moment, not touching, not rushing. The land stretched around them, patient as ever. Some things in the West don't end clean. They just settle like dust after a long ride. Caleb knew Crow would remember him. But the rope in the oak would remember too. And sometimes, that's enough. The days that followed didn't feel like an ending. They felt like the long exhale after holding your breath too long. Crow kept his distance. His men passed the ranch without stopping, eyes forward, hands off their guns. Word travels fast in the West, especially when pride gets cut without blood being spilled. Caleb noticed the quiet more than anything. The land sounded different when it wasn't waiting for trouble. Clara healed slow but steady. The limp faded first, then the shadows in her eyes. She helped where she could, never asking, just doing, mending fence, feeding horses, sitting on the porch at dusk like she belonged there, like she always had. One evening as the sun bled into the horizon, she asked the question she'd been carrying since the road. "Why me?" she said. "You could have turned away." Caleb watched the sky instead of her. "I turned away once," he said, "long time ago. Didn't like the man it made me." She nodded. That was answer enough. Winter crept in quiet, frost on the rails, smoke rising slower from the chimney. Nights stretched long, but they weren't empty. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. Both felt right. The oak tree stood unchanged at the edge of the property. Rope long gone, bark scarred but alive. Clara walked past it one morning and didn't stop, didn't look back. Caleb saw that too. By spring, rumors reached them. Crow had sold land. Crow had lost men. Crow drank harder than he used to. The valley shifted the way valleys always do, slowly and without apology. One afternoon, a letter arrived, Clara's name on it. A chance back east. Family she hadn't seen in years. A life that didn't smell like dust and gun oil. She held it all day before speaking. "I could go," she said that night. Caleb nodded. "You could." Silence sat between them, honest and heavy. "But I don't have to," she added. He looked at her then. Really looked. Not as someone he'd saved, not as something fragile, as a woman who'd chosen to stand back up. "That choice is yours," he said. She smiled. Not grateful. Certain. Summer returned the color to the land, grass thick, water running clear. The ranch felt fuller without feeling crowded. Some mornings, Caleb woke before the sun and listened to the quiet, realizing it no longer sounded lonely. People came by now and then, travelers, neighbors, folks who'd heard stories and wanted to see if they were true. Caleb never corrected them. Truth doesn't need polishing. One night, as the wind moved through the trees, Clara sat beside him on the porch. No words, just presence, the kind that doesn't ask for promises. The West doesn't give happy endings, it gives earned ones. And sometimes, if you stand your ground long enough, the land lets you keep what you fought for. Caleb rested his hands on his knees, watching the stars settle into place. The rope was gone. The road was quiet, and for the first time in a long while, that was enough.